Hey everybody, KC here. So there was a piece in the Washington Post this week about a presentation that Jim Farley, the president and CEO of the Ford Motor Company, gave to analysts this week out in Dearborn, Michigan. And I think there are some parallels with retailing that I wanted to offer to you. First of all, Farley said that Ford will be competing differently, going for tailored ownership experiences rather than jockeying for slivers of market share. I think that's a really interesting position. It seems to me there are a lot of retailers out there who they're always going after a little bit more market share, a little bit, just more customers. And if you focus on the customers that you have to make their experience better, to cater more specifically to their needs, their desires, their aspirations, you try to inspire them, you can get them to grow the amount of money that they spend with you as opposed to trying to get new customers all the time. I love that phrase, tailored ownership experiences, tailored customer experiences. I think there's a parallel there. Second, he wants to emphasize software and services as well as iconic vehicles such as pickup trucks, large SUVs, commercial vehicles, and advanced second-generation electric vehicles. And he feels that by focusing on software and Ford's strengths in products, they won't be as vulnerable to a downturn in the future. Again, really, really smart. I think one of the things that retailers want to do is just focus on the products that you're really strong in, the things that differentiate you, and focus on services that other companies can't replicate. If you're more than just, we've used this phrase before, right? If you're more than just a source of product, become a resource for your customers, again, you're more resistant to downturns in the future. The one thing you don't want to be, and he makes this point as well, is you don't want to try to be all things to all people because it ends up being nothing special to anybody. 3, they're going out of their way to cull the parts that they use in their cars as well as the suppliers that they use. They want to focus on reducing the number of vehicle parts and the stability of parts supply companies, Farley said. For example, by the time Ford rolls out a new version of the F-150 pickup this year, it will have 2,400 fewer parts than the last version. One of the things they also say is that they have some chronically inefficient Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers. Some of that creates an unstable flow of parts. If a supplier is not on a path to a permanent solution to those problems, we're going to resource the business. Again, something retailers have to do. You want to make sure that the relationships that you have with your suppliers are absolutely solid and that you're putting your customers first. If they're not putting your customers first, and if there are problems in terms of inflation, costs, supply chain, if they're not willing to meet you halfway to help you solve the problems for your consumer, if all they're interested in is their bottom line as opposed to your bottom line, I think it's time for retailers to look around and say, hey, maybe we have to rethink this. Maybe we have to resource the business. Manufacturers aren't going to be real happy that I'm saying that. And 4, they said one of the things they want to do is reduce the investment in hyper-competitive market segments such as two-row smaller SUVs. What they want to do is get away from the idea that they're competing on everything, like they made the point earlier, but in the hyper-competitive segments where they can't really differentiate themselves. What they want to do is they want to move into the segments and specialize in the segments where they can differentiate themselves. And that's something that retailers have to do as well. Don't compete on every little item, a nickel here, a nickel there. Compete in the places where you can make a difference, where you can be really competitive, and where you can be better than the competition. Listen, I'm a Ford guy. I happen to drive a Mustang. But I think Farley's points are both really smart for the car business, but also worth paying attention to if you're in the retail business. Anyway, that's what's on my mind. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.